Colorado GOP Executive Committee voted unanimously to not endorse a presidential nominee in 2016 in its caucus. This comes after the National Republican Party amended its rules that require delegates to fully support the candidate that wins the caucus. Natasha, this got us into like the details of caucus work and politics and everything else. What it comes down to is that the Republican caucus in 2016 really won't attract a whole lot of attention, at least from the main candidate seeking the nomination. Do you think it was the right move?
It's certainly a risk. Even from a sort of geeky political aspect, it's kind of interesting because if they went to the convention and we didn't have a clear winner in this very diverse field of candidates, it would allow them to really, for the Colorado delegates to have a play. The question is, was that one, very small chance of that happening worth the bad press that they've gotten out of this? Probably not. The thing, though, that as we discuss this, yes, it might have some candidates pay less attention to Colorado, but if they're interested in the end game, if they're interested in getting into the White House, they have to be in Colorado. They don't have a choice because with more than 30% of the population unaffiliated, if you look at under 26 voters, it's nearly 50% are unaffiliated. You cannot ignore Colorado in order to get to the White House. So even though this might affect some of this in the next few months, in the long run, we're going to see plenty of presidential ads. Don't worry.
I'm not sure that's good news or bad news, Natasha, but I appreciate the sentiment. Jessica, for Republican politics, is this a smart move because it seems independent and thwarting a national policy that was controversial, or is it silly because now it loses influence?
I don't know. I've spent the last couple of weeks just trying to forget that I've ever been a lifelong Republican or that I was involved in the Republican caucus system or a Republican candidate. I'm just so obsessed with getting anybody with the last name Trump or Bush or Clinton out of my mind and kind of moving on from there. I think Colorado voters have this sense of entitlement that we need to be relevant, that we're not just another big square state out there. I think Colorado matters as part of the Rocky Mountain region. We are not California, we are not New York, we are not Texas. But I think it's kind of it's a realization of what our place is kind of in the process, and maybe this allows us to take a step back, not just as Republicans, but as a state to say, hey, let's focus on more important things and get the cheerleading and the rah-rah out of the way, and so we can get down more to the nuts and bolts.
Patty, it's the first time we saw the state GOP in the headlines for not with their own drama. What did you think of this particular issue?
I think the Colorado Republican Party was sorry not to have had their name in headlines for for at least 5 minutes, so they got back in with this. No one really, the Colorado caucus system is confusing enough to people without these arcane laws coming down on a national level. I would think right now you would want to be as involved as you possibly could in this crazy, crazy Republican election. The candidates who are out there, have we ever had people talk as much about a presidential election in advance as many people talking about it? So I said, great, keep Bush in there, keep the Hillary Clinton scandal going, have people actually pay attention to politics.
David, was this the right move for Colorado Republicans?
Well, it's certainly harmful on one side because when you bring people to the caucus, then you're self-identifying them. They self-identify as really active and engaged people. So, for example, when my wife and I went to our Democratic caucus in 2008, I caucused for Obama, she caucused for Clinton, they got two names of people who are pretty involved and interested, and then the party can keep those names and follow up. But with the Republicans, now there's much less reason to go to the caucus because there may be no primary for state representative, and even if there were, a lot of people don't know about it. Likewise for your U.S. representative, they could have had a marquee level thing to draw in a lot of people who could become more active Republican volunteers, contributors, get out the vote folks, all that kind of stuff. And now they're throwing that away by not having a caucus that will draw broadly.
It'll be interesting to see if the move the Colorado GOP makes changes anything on the national level, if any other states catch on saying it's that national policy, but we'll have to wait to see on that one.